Well, our next guest says the Great Reset is still coming. You know, we thought, oh, maybe it's over. The globalists are gone, right? But no, it's coming, but in a different way under President Trump. It's just being sold to us differently, so don't fall for it. We're not sycophants here on the show. We're happy to praise President Trump when he does something great. We're also happy to slam him when this is all being shepherded into us right now. Cashless society, biometric scanning, Palantir, all ready to stand there and take over the helm to make sure that we're all tracked and monitored. Don't take my word for it. European Union, moving towards getting rid of cash altogether. They're on the record already saying that you'd be considered basically a terrorist or in the gray market if you transact in cash over a certain amount. Oh, you want to pay your gardener 500 euros? Sorry, you're a terrorist. This is what they're doing. Christine Lagarde told us that. Mark Goodwin is the author of The Bitcoin Dollar. He's an investigative journalist at Unlimited Hangout alongside Whitney Webb and friend of the show. And, we just also got this word. So I want to bring Mark into the show. Mark, great to see you here and welcome back. It's been, you were spot on. I think you were on the show maybe 2 years ago and you predicted all of this. Good to see you.
Something like that. Yeah, it's great to be back, Clayton. Thanks so much.
So at the time, maybe you could just wind the clock back a little bit. What were you warning us about 2 years ago? Cashless, biometrics, stablecoins, U.S. dollars being backed by stablecoins in order to sort of hide the debt. We got $37 trillion in debt. What are we going to do? Oh, we could back it by stablecoins, and then we could offload it on the world and then do a rug pull. Suddenly end the entire crypto, scene, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, more or less. It's very complicated, very, very much so by design to sort of confuse everyone about what the real play is here. And, of course, it was a bit speculative, a year plus ago whenever we did talk. But a lot of it has come to fruition. And we're now seeing, like the special advisor to Putin the other day coming out and being like, hey, I think crypto is actually a big ploy by the United States government to deal with their debt problems. That was a story that came out. And so basically the thesis of the Bitcoin dollar and the idea of, offloading all of this, inflationary effects, finding a buyer for the debt of the U.S. government. The quick summation of it is, we all kind of know how the petrodollar works. Right, where we're offloading our inflationary effects by forcing people to buy dollars to be able to get oil. We've basically recreated that system with Bitcoin and digital currency, where the vast majority of all trades for digital currency are done in dollars. So, how do you deal with the debt problem? You have to find someone who buys your reserve assets, and you need to increase the amount of users that use the currency, right? So you need to solve both for the reserves and for the currency that's based off the reserves. And stablecoins really perfectly fix both of those problems, where, they allow anybody access to dollars with just a smartphone. Anywhere in the world now has access to dollars, and those stable coins, these digital dollars, are backed thanks to the regulation that we just saw with the Genius Act, are now being forced to be backed by U.S. treasuries and de facto, U.S. debt. So we're seeing kind of all of these issues being solved very conveniently as, the U.S. is now starting to kind of deal with its debt problems, debasing the dollar, and now starting to cut rates. So, I think it made a lot of sense then, and now we're really seeing it start to happen. And so, of course, we'll get into these signposts of what all of this biometric and debanking capital controls have to do with all of that. But that's basically a quick summation of the Bitcoin dollar idea.
No, thank you for that. And Arthur Cottrell in our chat room says Mark is a very smart guy that should be taken seriously. And I agree. I mean, again, if you rewind the clock back to what Mark was saying more than a year and a half ago or so, he's spot on. And now we're seeing it. I mean, just look at this headline here on Vietnam. Vietnam freezes 86 million bank accounts. Jim Rickards was on talking with Danielle Kimbone, and she was saying that, because they want to move Vietnam to a mandatory biometric ID system, and they would freeze these accounts as sort of a model, as sort of a trial run for a centralized digital control. And I think you're going to see that across Asia. We're already seeing, obviously, in parts of, in China as well. So can you talk about this? So Vietnam just says, hey, 86 million bank accounts frozen. We're moving you to this new system.
Yeah, I mean, I think it plays into, very directly into this play, right? If you're trying to find more users for the dollar system, and you're using these stable coins to do that, what that really does is ironically, it's a very centralizing effect on monetary policy. The ideology of crypto is supposed to be this decentralization idea, and in many ways that is true, of course, at a protocol level. But in actuality, for monetary policy, if you're giving every single person in the world, like say millions of people in Vietnam, access to dollars, all they have to do is get out of their local currency using their bank account, using a smartphone and an app, and they have access to dollars, and especially dollars that give you a yield. Part of that, the reserves that are issued, these treasuries are giving you a little bit of a yield based on the federal funding rate. So now everybody around the world has access to dollars and access to yield, even though the dollar is, of course, losing value as it's inflating. It's doing better than most other countries' currencies in general. We have this sort of dollar milkshake theory idea. So you put yourself in the shoes of the Vietnam central bank, or the regulators in Vietnam, the bank regulators that are doing their best to keep everybody localized in their local currency and keeping their money in the country. Now that all of the people in their country suddenly have access and are able to get out of the local currency, the central bank and the governing body suddenly has a huge issue to deal with of capital flight. And we don't want all of the money just to flow into the U.S. So how do you actually meaningfully fight that? Well, you threaten to debank people unless they, adhere to regulation and biometric digital identification systems, which, due to the nature of these stablecoins being on public blockchains, these open databases that anyone can access, if you have connected biometrics and digital IDs associated with your wallet addresses and with your ins and outs of this new digital economy, you now suddenly have this great ability to track, really warrantlessly surveil anybody using these rails, and have a better chance of keeping people within the system and within your local currency. So this is sort of how foreign countries are going to try to start dealing with this mass dollarization, and therefore via technology, and therefore the opportunity for mass capital flight. So we're going to see everywhere, including the United States, I'm sure, of course, because they also want to make sure they know where their citizens' money's going. But what we're really starting to see this first rolled out in the global South, in the Eurozone, in the UK, a very sudden restriction on how much you can own, and what sort of ID you have to put up and give to the governing bodies to be able to, play in these regulatory modes.
We want to introduce you to our friends over at Venice.ai, because if you want to use AI, but you're nervous about the technology, of course, you're not alone. Sam Altman recently announced that ChatGPT can reference all of your past conversations. Do you feel comfortable knowing an AI platform has access to all of your thoughts, dreams, sensitive questions, business ideas? What are they doing with it? He said they will get to know your life. Right now, there's a former director of the NSA sitting on the board. Edward Snowden called this a willful, calculated betrayal of the rights of every person on Earth. That's why we think that Venice.ai is a great alternative. It uses open source AI models, in fact, to deliver text, code, and image generation to your browser, but there's no downloads, no installation of anything, and it doesn't spy on you or censor the AI. Messages are encrypted, and your conversation history is only stored on your browser. AI, of course, can be extremely valuable, but we shouldn't give up our privacy to use it. They have a Venice Pro plan that unlocks the full platform, features including PDF uploads for summaries or insights, the ability to turn off safe mode for unhindered image generation, the ability to change how Venice interacts with you by modifying symptom prompts, limitless text, high image limits. So try it for yourself. Head on over to Venice.ai/redacted. See what it can do for you and how it feels to use a truly private AI source. So one more time, that's Venice.ai, Venice, VENICE.ai/redacted.
The Joker in our chat room says, I go to the bank, I take out cash, and I buy with cash. Like, that sounds great. But of course, most banks and many banks don't have cash anymore, and they're moving away from having cash in their vaults. You want to take out some cash? Yeah, come back on Thursday. We may have it for you. That's been happening repeatedly. Banks are going cashless. And you talked about the Eurozone, as Bumpy in our chat says, this is what the UK government wants done in the UK, using a crypto euro dollar. So moving you away from the euro, moving you onto a digital euro.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we really saw this. Of course, we had been hearing about these great reset ideas, before the pandemic, of course, but that really accelerated everything and really brought a lot of these issues, right to the forefront. They really attacked cash extremely heavily, whether it was, putting capital controls on or how much cash you can take out, or just literally like restricting businesses from being able to accept cash, for fears of viral transfer or whatever have you. But of course, this is a huge attack on financial freedom. Cash, certainly while still being fiat money and still having a lot of issues of being political money, it's a bearer asset in many ways, and it's extremely hard to track and trace, the exchange of cash between bartering parties. And that's a very good thing for folks like us that, want to go buy something and not, let everybody, that's a part of the trusted chain in the settlement, be able to see what's going on. So cash is a very important tool for freedom advocates, and it's something that should be fought for. Even if you are someone who is a believer or a longtime holder of digital assets, cash is an extremely important check and balance to a rapidly digitalizing world. And especially when you're looking at, now we're seeing the worst of the worst worlds of, digital fiat now creating being published in a decentralized ledger, right? Where now anybody in the world who downloads the blockchain, whether it's Ethereum or Bitcoin or Solana or whatever, these chains that have a lot of stable coins on them, now anybody can see these transactions. And with just a little bit of some of that biometric digital ID spice, you can start to triangulate and heuristically analyze, pretty accurately, who is spending digital dollars. So not only do you not get the freedom of fiat money and you're still using political money, now there's this open ledger aspect to it, which actually, really enables warrantless surveillance at a quite an extreme level. So the war on cash, coinciding with the rapid digitalization of fiat and of stable coins, is, while digital IDs are bursting, is an extremely dangerous, perfect storm of things that, as you stated in your intro, unfortunately are sort of pushing us towards these pillars of, Klaus Schwab's Great Reset, unfortunately.
Well, and you brought up surveillance, and Mark, I'll get you out of here on this, as we're running out of time, but I want to ask you specifically about Palantir and sort of the biometric, surveillance state that we're all entering. Very, very cozy to President Trump. We know, very cozy. You've written multiple pieces on how cozy they are. I think also tied to Israel and all of this. So what sort of biometric system are we looking at in the United States for surveillance? We see it already at the airport. Customs and Border Patrol says, right, when you walk through this particular gate, you're under surveillance, you're being watched here, your photos will be deleted. The TSA also says this, but it's much bigger than just the airport.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's happening everywhere. You're just seeing the proliferation of surveillance everywhere, whether it's by, a private entity that has a strong public relationship like Palantir, which, as you said, was extremely important. The PayPal Mafia, Palantir was the anti-fraud algorithm at PayPal. PayPal Mafia at large, Thiel, Musk, they were extremely important in getting Trump in office. And it should be of no surprise that we're seeing Palantir get many, government contracts and being a big part of this new push for surveillance. We're seeing this dialectic push towards, hey, we got to restrict, voter fraud. We have to restrict immigration. We have to restrict domestic terrorism. none of these things in a vacuum are necessarily bad, but what is the place that it's bringing us to when it's combined with cameras everywhere, digital money, and, this push for digital ID? Well, someone has to run the database. Someone has to be the one putting all of this together, using their AI to analyze this and create, a database of American citizens and people just in the U.S. and people worldwide. And Palantir has really, I guess, stepped up to be right there, ready, willing, and able, as the regulatory bodies of the United States are now making this something that has to occur. So as it relates to digital money, we're seeing, Palantir's Joe Lonsdale is partnering with Palantir's Peter Thiel and Palmer Luckey of Anduril, and they're actually creating a stablecoin bank in Columbus, Ohio, called Erebor, another name of a Lord of the Rings thing, which is a very common place in the Thielverse. And we're seeing them actually now start to roll out, banking, highly regulated banking instruments to back stable coins, which, really plays into a lot of the things I've been warning about, a lot of the things I'm concerned about as fiat money goes digital. So I think Palantir is sort of just ready to take the cake here that's being made available as the Trump administration is pushing these these things that are being set up as if they're for our safety, but in reality, in many ways, they are probably ensnaring us in quite a biometric panopticon, unfortunately.
I mean, we just skimmed the surface here. You got to read all of Mark's incredible investigative journalism on this. It might be painful, like if you're a huge Trump lover and you don't want to see any sort of connections to the deep state and Palantir and the biometric state that we're now involved with. It might be uncomfortable, but that's what this show is all about, making you uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable right now. Mark, great to see you. Thank you for your great work. Read his work over at Unlimited Hangout, and also follow him on X. He does some great work there as well. Mark, great to see you again. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much, Clayton and Natali. Had a great time.